Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF everything in that shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey,
It's me, Daniel,
and this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on that shelf.
Oh, I burped instead of saying boom. Well, this is we are gonna start our journey into spoiling She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. I guess that's the full title, but the episode name is A Normal Amount of Rage.
Yep, I really
So that's
like that.
cool.
I really like that.
I like that. Before we get into the breakdown, I guess just how did you feel about the first episode?
I'm loving it. It's first episode. I feel like I don't have a good sense of the show yet, though. The biggest reasoning being that okay, I see from a show making standpoint how they decided to use their budget in the sense where Bruce is most likely just in one episode or in a
Probably.
few.
He probably bookends the series or something.
Yeah, heavily, right? And that's why I'm like, oh, it's all Bruce focused. And still like, yeah, he's trying to train her and degrees of mansplaining and all that kind of stuff. But like, I don't have a good sense of what the show's about yet, except for her. Like, I have a good sense of who she is. The fourth wall breaking is a nice feature that we have to talk about because it's such a
we'll get there for sure.
It's a very nice thing that they do. But we will. Yeah, you're right. We'll get there. But yeah, it's I don't have a good sense of the show yet.
Interesting. Yeah, I think I have like the kind of theme they're going with that obviously has multiple layers to it. But I think when Bruce says living only half of your truth is no way to live or something, he says something to that thing. I think that's the point of the show, and I think I
agree.
Each segment is in conversation with that. So I mean, we can jump into it, but I think the idea is that's true because if we're talking about the court case, if you're only accepting that like, hey, this guy has all this money and he's trying to do this to save people, it's like you're not fully incorporating every aspect of this person. Like you need to take a look at the whole picture, because that does come with responsibilities. Certain expectations get scaled based on taking a full picture of what you're dealing with. And I think more specifically to Jen is you can't just keep being who you are now that this big change has happened to you. This has introduced a new level of responsibility for you.
Yeah.
And I think that's the show, is not trying to deny parts of yourself. You need to have it actually all come together for you.
Right. And
or of anyone, really. You shouldn't be denying parts of anyone. You can't pick and choose, really.
Yeah, because ultimately that's how like issues and like happen in the sense of like I mean, huge cherry picking. I mean, if we choose to cherry pick data to misrepresent ourselves and all that kind of stuff, which people often do. Yes. I mean, like, let's look at all of social media and let's look at all of dating apps, right? People always misrepresent themselves. But in a courtroom situation, that's the point, is we're trying to balance that picture out and all that kind of stuff. And you're right. You can't just look at one side of it, of what this lawyer defending the accused, I don't know what the legal terms are, but like the person on trial, the defendant, you know, like that guy, he's doing his job. I hate his job, but he's doing it in misrepresenting his client as he wasn't so bad, or it was a mistake, or it was just what was it? Just another bad day. You know what I mean? Like all those kind of bullshit things that people will go like, oh, this is how we're going to relate to him and humanize him, instead of, oh wait, you did what? Why aren't we just talking about that? You know? But I know you're gonna have a lot more to say about the court case, and I'm really looking forward to that. Well,
Probably
yeah,
not. It's probably not. I
fair enough.
appreciate that, but probably not. I
Well,
think you
I mean,
you
yeah,
probably have more details than I do. But
really,
yeah, we can jump into it. So
yeah,
the episode starts with Jen practicing her closing arguments, which I
yes,
think still is in conversation with that whole,
mhm,
as I said, she's acknowledging yes, this, but, and so it is
mhm.
taking that second half and putting it all together to be like, so this means you can't excuse his actions because we should be expecting more of this person because of their status, because
Of
of
course.
everything incorporated. And
Mhm.
I like that. I mean, it obviously on the first watch you kind of just like, yeah, okay, cool. um she's speaking directly to you. I feel like it immediately creates some, if not intimacy, some sort of familiarity with Jen as a
Yes,
character.
absolutely.
You're on board with her
Mhm.
already, and then
She's
you
very
get,
approachable. I
mhm,
like it, like it. That is, I'm glad you pointed it out because I'm like, there's very few things like that that can pull you in right away. And of course, the dialogue that was written there for her was incredible, and her delivery was incredible. But like, she's a compelling actress, and she just pulls you
yes,
in. I love the
oh yeah,
casting.
oh yeah.
It's great.
I'm a big Tatiana Maslany
Mhm.
fan. But I think so. Yeah, there's the just her and you
Mhm.
together, and then you pull out, you see that she's got her friend Nikki,
Yes.
and the other guy, I don't remember his name,
Mhm.
but so then you get that interaction of like how she is with other people and
Mhm.
how other people see her,
Mhm.
and I think that also helps. So there's a lot of character building right away, and
Yes.
then you kind of like, you're on board or you're not of,
Mhm.
uh she breaks the fourth wall pretty quickly. Like,
Yes.
I like how she does it throughout the show. It seems
Mhm.
like she's kind of trying to hide it, that she's doing it. Like, she's like,
Yeah.
oh, got to take that call, then breaks the fourth wall. And we'll get to the
Mhm.
other time, it's my background. But the other
Yeah.
time she kind of hides it, but this time it's like, yeah, she's like, oh yeah, I have a call, which she does, but she doesn't
Mhm.
take the call. She comes back into the room to break the fourth wall and talk to us.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that she's kind of like, I get the sense that you've already heard that I'm a Hulk because Nikki says it,
Mhm.
and you're not going to really pay attention to anything else unless I explain that. So
Yep.
and obviously that's the meta of the show, was made
Yeah.
so that they didn't get to that until or get to the details until the 8th episode, and now they've made the decision to be like,
Yes.
no, let's put it in the first episode, which I
Mhm.
think is a good idea. But
Yes. Especially for comedic purposes. I mean, I feel
I
like the
think it
show's
just
leaning
helps you
towards
get it,
comedy.
not one, like, I think it's good for now. There can be other, like, secret boxes or whatever they call the mystery boxes. Like, you don't
Mm,
need the mystery to be, how did she get this way? I think it just works better storytelling wise, as she says, to just get it out of the way of like, you can focus
right.
on other stuff
Right.
now that you know how come I am the way I am.
Yeah, because I I do agree with that. I feel like there's some characters out there that I'm like, the origin story realistically is not that great. What is compelling about them is how they develop as a character and into a hero that we know them to be,
And that's,
right?
but I
One of my
mean,
biggest things is Kate Bishop. I'm like, did she need the whole 60 episodes? No, no, not at all. But I mean, that's a show that has problems of its own kind, but
yeah.
that's not a compelling origin, right? If that did take all that time, it would have been like, oh, come on, man. It would have been sucky. Like, you just were in the Battle of New York. Do you know how many other people were in the Battle of New York? Get your privileged ass down. You know what I mean? It's
Um so yeah, I think so to go right away into this episode being about, um I think you touched on it as well. It feels like you're getting a lot more in depth with Bruce and how he feels about things,
yes.
and how things have gone for him since the snap and since everything.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's Jen and her cousin Bruce Banner, uh going on a
On
road
a
trip,
road trip.
and
And
then
and we get a lot of information really quick that answers a lot of
yeah,
nerd questions,
he
like how
explains
did
how
he
come
heal his
he's human.
arm? Yeah,
Well, he
how
didn't
he's
fully
human.
heal it, but he's on the
Right,
process of healing.
right, right, right.
He's fully human. He's not the hybrid
Mhm.
anymore. It's
Yes.
the thing that was on his arm in Shang-Chi. And
Yes.
so
So
yeah,
it was
that
suppressing the
is all
Hulk
sorted out.
powers, letting him heal.
So
They
we only
tell
get
us
the
that
tail
really
end of that.
quick. And then they also give us a really good reason of how he would be able to maintain human form during an accident. because they, of course, they get into an accident, and it's funny because it's a Sakarian ship or something like that.
Sakaran, it's a mess. It's a courier ship, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, but like that never gets revisited in the episode again, which bothers me. But I mean, like that's not the point. I mean, my assumption is that Hulk takes on that adventure by himself, and then
Yeah, he
Jennifer,
says he's gonna look into it.
yeah. I missed that part. But
he
yeah,
says I have
Okay.
to go look into that. But so basically, yeah, the reason, well, he doesn't stay human throughout the crash because the inhibitor breaks, and he's like, oh, well, I'm turning. You need to get out of here. But
yeah,
he
but
then starts to realize,
he's
oh,
human
shit, you're
during the
turning.
cut. Yeah, he's human during the cut. That's the
Yeah,
one
it's just the fact
thing
that the
that
inhibitor is broken. That's what's changing him. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And because people would have been like, oh, you can't cut the Hulk's skin. And I'm like, shut up. Okay, first of all,
Yeah.
shut up. But like they went over above and beyond for all those people nitpicking at shit. And this is the fun, like, because we have to address that, right? When people are online, not that I watched promo shit, because I liked your advice of like, yeah, I just watched the 2 trailers and that's
Mhm.
it. I won't watch anything else. That's great advice because this show is so much better now. Because if I had watched those trailers, then I would have gotten pulled into that stupid online debacle of like, oh, I can't believe she does the thunderclap instead of Bruce. I'm like, ha, no, the show goes above and beyond to show you that it's not true and that they are idiots and that she does her version of it. Fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no one. I don't think anyone is doing it in good faith. Talking about,
They're not.
I've seen
You're
a bunch
absolutely
of
right.
stupid comments.
No, you're
And
absolutely right.
I won't even
The-
bring them up. But
yeah,
just
no, we're not
any-
bringing them up. We're
this-
highlighting misogyny behind them.
Yeah, this episode
yes.
is potentially baiting, but otherwise,
It is heavily baiting. It is heavily.
it just
baiting.
feels like, yeah, if anyone was going to be mad, this episode wasn't going to help them.
Yeah,
If
it
they-
shut
if they
them up.
decided they wanted.
Yeah.
If they wanted to be mad about this show, they were certainly going to still be mad by the end of this. yeah, I
Exactly,
think-
because this show does shut every one of those things up. Like, the biggest thing I can think of is the thunderclapping. It's like, I can't believe she gets the thunderclap and not Bruce. I'm like, okay, well, Bruce teaches her the thunderclap, so shut up. How do you like that?
Yeah, I don't know if he does, but we'll get there.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, they're thrown off the road as they
Mhm.
start the conversation about
Mhm.
Steve Rogers' virginity.
Mhm.
They crash. As you said, he gets cut, she gets cut, his blood gets into her blood.
Yep.
Immediately she starts hulking out.
Yeah.
So then she wakes up and goes into like this like
Seedy ass
sports
bar.
bar. Yeah, look at this.
Like a seedy ass country dive bar.
Yeah, and she's getting cleaned up. She meets some
Mhm.
friends. Well, not they're not friends. I shouldn't say that.
No,
What
well,
I
they're
should say
friends
is she
now,
meets-
baby.
She meets some friendly women who try to help her out,
Yes.
and then she gets to make a call to Bruce to get
Mhm.
him to come get her, which leads to her. And I genuinely did feel, maybe I think what I felt was not like, oh no, they're going to kill her, but I was just like, yeah, like this sucks. Like this
Yeah.
part. Not that I'm saying there's only a couple of things that suck living
Yes.
as a woman in society, but
Mhm.
just that thing of like, I've already had to deal with a bunch of shit. I'm just waiting to be picked up,
Mhm.
and now this is happening. And
I
so it
can't-
wasn't like I was like, who's gonna save her? It was because actually what happens is Bruce takes her out so that he stops her from killing those guys or maiming those guys. It's
Yep.
not like he takes them out to save
Mhm.
her. He's
Yep.
more like, nah, I just gotta neutralize the situation.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it was just like, what a very shitty like real thing that must
Yeah.
that must happen all the time.
I like what you're saying because this show is obviously showing us a lot of the microaggressions that they deal with, right? Even like I'm not sure in the opening scene, do they do that part where like when she's talking to her friend and then the other lawyer guy, right? The lawyer guy tries to pull rank on her friend. It's like, you're gonna believe a paralegal over another lawyer, and then
Mhm.
Shen's like, yep. It's like, yep. What? It's your qualification doesn't mean you're better at like your perspective or more supportive or whatever, right? It means you're more qualified to do a job to other people that don't know what you do. it's the reality. But the show is showing all the bullshit that women have to go through. And this scene in particular, I feel, is so good at isolating and putting on a cherry on top of, oh, it's going to be, I don't know if any of that could be measured in regards to the worst, but certainly what felt like to me the most threatening thing that she was dealing with that day, since the car crash and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
was
so I didn't think it
yeah.
was the most threatening thing because
Right.
we know she couldn't Hulk out, and it's more just like
Right.
what
I meant perceived threat.
the toll of
Right.
just trying to exist.
Right.
I
I meant
like, no, so,
perceived
like,
threat from her side, though. But I mean, even then, that's pushing up, like that's pushing something. But yeah,
I think falling off a cliff is more of a threat than being a Hulk and having people approach you, because I think
fair enough.
she would. So what I'm trying to get
Yeah.
at is just how draining it is.
Mhm.
Not hypothetically, just it is
Yep.
draining. That yeah, that could happen to anyone, that you just meet a group of unsavory people, but it's like she's already like dealt with all this shit throughout her day, and then it's like just add on, you're a woman just standing there, and now you have to either make those guys feel better about themselves, or like do just all those games that you have to play,
Yeah.
as she talks about later, to potentially just stay alive.
Yes.
But yeah, it's shitty, and I think you're right that it does a great job of kind of isolating that. So as I said, yeah, Bruce takes her out as the Hulk because she's already hulked out by that point, and then she wakes up in Mexico. And this is the part where I was like, yeah, like they're really leaning into the Bruce, which I don't mind. I think that's the TV shows work best when they're really like leaning into the characters. And just how sad Bruce is that like Steve isn't there, Tony's not there, and he's like, yeah, like Tony built this for me, and it's just the fact that he brings up, like, he always said he'd come back and take it from me because this is just a loner, and we know, like, it's like, yeah, that's a funny Tony thing to say, but he's like, well, now you know he's not coming back, like, so it's like I thought that was like a nice little added detail of just that joke leading to like just the very sad thing of like, and he's not, but he's not coming back. That's not a thing anymore. So I like that. And then you basically, she comes in on him trying to get some work done on her blood stuff. I've heard people say this episode in general moves too fast. I'm fine with that. I think, because I'm like, yeah, he's the Hulk. I know he's smart. I get it. Like, that's his thing. He would be working on this. So then now I can just get the highlights of what he found once she gets, like, once she's woken up, he can just tell me, like, I can see that he's working, and he can be like, oh, okay, you're awake. This is what I found out. And we find out that her body was actually, sorry, not her body. Both of their bodies are built to process gamma radiation this way. That's why they would like, so it's not like just a family thing. It is, but it's kind of like the Kamala thing. Like, it's not like if she had a brother or sister, it's guaranteed they would be able to process it this way. It's just like they're set up. And in fact, her blood cured him, so even that helped heal his arm, meaning it's more potent, meaning it's better, it's the blood that's actually better at processing, which makes me feel like any type of complaint about like how come she can do this, it's like, if she was already inclined, like let's say she took self-defense stuff, like if that was already in her, and then you're adding the fact that she's got these powers and that her blood would already like kind of like take it further than Bruce, which doesn't make Bruce bad. Like, we already know what Bruce can do. It's just like saying that she's starting at a higher level than him. He had to do a lot of work, and she's already like, it's going to be easier for her, which we see through the show, like that, all that stuff, in addition to what she talks about processing anger, all of that is going to be fine with her, because what I see this show as being is like, just because she's good at it doesn't mean that she's fully embracing it, meaning she still needs to do the embracing part of it. But anyway, so then you get that information that like, oh, I actually used your blood to cure my arm all the way, so he could go back into the hybrid smart Hulk.
Yeah, Smart Hulk, not Professor Hulk. I'm
Yeah.
glad that they made a point of calling him Smart Hulk, not Professor
I
Hulk.
also like that he's like, I didn't have like
I
I didn't have a
didn't
say in
choose it.
They-
Yeah.
that's that
It's like,
happened.
but you said it, implying that you agree with it.
Yeah.
Don't lawyer me.
Yeah, I like that throughout he's trying to like give her all these like tips about like not just how to be a superhero, but like how to navigate how you're perceived as the superhero. Because he also says,
once you're
it's
the
not just
monster,
easy to like it's not easy to get over the fact that people consider you a monster.
yeah. Once people see you as a monster, they don't turn back, right? It's these are very interesting things that he's saying, because these are all and this is how I feel in her shoes, right? The idea of like, I get where he's coming from. It's like, hey, this took me this long. We need to take it this seriously. This is my lived experience with this, and nobody else in the world has this. So yeah, you're kind of stuck with me in regards to dealing with this. But he's not recognizing where she's at properly, because like even that first interaction where she's interacting with him in Hulk form, he's slow to kind of catch on to the fact that it's not the same kind of experience. What he's describing is more akin to the DID kind of experience that Moon Knight like feels than what Jennifer Walters is displaying right now, right? It's making it seem like, oh, there's no other hand on the wheel, the other guy, another ego, to like another personality takeover. He describes it very much like handling DID. And she's like, no, I've got both sides that are good. I'm just deciding or dismissing the side of it, you know, and
So I would say it's
like, let's
important to
embrace it.
It's not that she's saying there's two sides. She's saying
Yes.
it's just me, meaning she's always looking at this as a singular thing instead of a holistic thing. And so she's like, yeah, in transition, it's whatever. I'm me, I'm conscious, not accepting that like, sure, you're not dealing with another passenger, but you are now a Hulk. Like that is part of who you are. So like you still have to factor that in. It's not just oh yeah, and also this. That's a big part of who you are, regardless of whether or not you can control it better than Bruce can.
Right.
It's still a part of you. And I like that that's kind of like, if you read the Dan Slott run in particular, like you see that like that's something she has to work on, is she'll sometimes be like, she will be the person that it seems like she's trying to accuse at the beginning of the show of like, well, I'm an Avenger, I'm a She-Hulk, like
all right,
I do what I need to do, and people being like, you just smashed that car for no reason. And she's like, yeah, but I was in a hurry, or like not taking on the actual responsibility.
Right.
And I think that's the important part of what Bruce is talking about, because he's saying like, yeah, this is a 15-year process, which it isn't going to be, obviously, because
yes.
But I think it's also important to see how many pages actually get ripped out. So like, even if you're factoring like, oh, well, he was really focusing on her being able to balance the other passenger. When he takes those pages out, there's still a lot more left in the book.
Yes, heavily.
It's not like he ripped out half the book.
Yeah, there's only like a few pages he ripped out. He's very careful about that. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so then I still see his point of like,
yes,
there's still some more things you need to navigate with this. And as I said at the beginning, like taking on this added responsibility, it is an added responsibility, and you need to actually own up to that. It's not something that you can just shrug off. It's not a hand wave thing. Yeah.
And I mean, that is, I mean, I like the fact that you said like that is the premise of this episode. It's to not turn down that side of you, or not choose or cherry pick.
I think it's going to be the whole series.
Well, I genuinely hope so, because I think that's a very, very good premise of like, how do you come to terms with every aspect of yourself, even the undesirable aspects of yourself, in order to fully embrace it? Because I mean, there are people like what Jen is doing right now that will be like, oh, I don't do that, and just constantly do it but don't recognize it. And I'm like, well, that's toxic as shit. And then when the people are like, yeah, you know what, I have been doing this, I'm working on it, and they're embracing that, and they're owning that, and they're trying to do something better about it, I'm like, yeah, you're now a whole person. We can trust you now. Like, you know what I mean? It's we can see you for who you are, flawed, and not trying to be something else. But that's where Jen's stuck in right now, because to her point, and you're right. Hulk's got a lot more to do and teach her and all this kind of stuff. And he's got valid points. And I'm on his side ultimately with like how you need to train this and power and how you need to approach this. But what she's looking at this from the perspective of I've worked so hard to get here
Mhm.
and I just lost it all. And this is bullshit. I lost my whole social life. Like, of course she would freak out. She would panic. She's like, no, I'm going to go back to my job. Like, I can't do
Yeah.
this. I get
Well,
where both sides are coming from.
Yeah, I think
100%.
that's good writing. That I don't
Absolutely.
feel like it would be easy to be like, well, either either Bruce or Jen are wrong. Like they both have
Right.
valid points, and I think
Absolutely.
that's good. It makes you lean in more because there's no obvious wrong person here.
Mhm. Now, I recognize like when you were talking about the blood thing and her being better, I was thinking a lot about that. I really heavily was. What I think I thought about this from the perspective of actual science, like you know how like the same blood can like basically the results of incest make weakened immune systems versus you have like genetic variation, there will be advances of that. So I was wondering if it was a version of that helps him heal, or if it was just like if it's the result of Bruce's blood or Bruce having undergone his training to get like his rage under control, and then that translates into how it transfuses into her. Either way, I was just like, I think the most important thing is she's on his level of being able to control the anger aspect of it while in
No,
Hulk
she's
form.
beyond his level.
In what capacity though? Because he's always well, I mean, in terms of pure strength,
Just
probably
think about
not,
this.
but, like,
She can phase
coordination,
in and
yeah.
out. He's talking about, oh, I need to be unconscious, and sometimes it's this.
True.
He's not in control the way she's in control. She's beyond.
That's
his
true.
level.
The phasing in and out is
Yeah.
very damn impressive for sure.
Yeah,
It's
so
very
we'll
impressive trait.
get there, but by no means is that to be like, oh, she's on his level. She's beyond his level. That is
Fair
the
enough.
point. She's
Mhm.
beyond his level, and so she's got the raw talent. He is still formidable because he's put in the time to actually hone his craft.
Yeah, that's
But
a good
she-
argument. Yeah.
But she is just naturally better than him.
Yeah.
That's the fact. And I know
yeah.
that's what I mean by like this episode, and I'm
Mhm.
assuming whole show is going to
Mhm.
bait all the people that are angry.
Yeah.
Because
yeah, for sure.
they did the groundwork to be like, she just is better than him. So
Yeah.
like whether or not she like leans in and becomes a better hero than
Mhm.
him, that's to be seen. But
Mhm.
she's starting at a better place than he started.
Yeah. Very, very good point. You're basically discussing the idea of talent versus skill acquisition, right? Hulk being skill acquisition route of getting his powers and understanding them and controlling them, her being pure talent, and then thereby being like shitting all over the skill acquisition aspect of it, which is very, very weird. It's great analogy. I love it. I love it a lot.
So yeah, we get to see them training, and
Yep.
it says, it basically shows what we've just been talking about instead of telling, like she's able to keep up with him or be better than him in things.
Yep.
She's even able to do the jumps, like she does the like ground smash, she does the jumps with joking and stuff. I like the part where she throws a boulder the same distance, so he like throws it out of the atmosphere, and he's like, just like, we already know he's jealous. He said that earlier on. Again, it's a joke, but it is. I like the idea that he's like, I'm genuinely jealous that you don't have someone else to compete with when you Hulk out. Like that's,
of course,
like what that like, because for him, I can also see this as like, wow, I have a family member that can actually understand what I'm going through. And then he's like,
yeah,
no, she doesn't actually fully understand what I'm going through because she doesn't have that experience. So yeah, like maybe it's not that the show was going deep on Bruce, it's more just like I felt so bad for him throughout the episode.
You know what, I thought this show did a really, really good job of writing a lot of Hulk development storylines, explanation, without the ability to give us a solo Hulk movie or anything like that. Not that that would have been like an interesting thing to see. Is like, oh, let's watch Hulk in isolation for 2 years work on science in the beach area. Like that's not, nobody wants to watch a movie like that. But like the fact that we're told and we're like through this dialogue and everything, including the whole what did he actually say with that he did it with Tony, like it was like a gem in a dark time or something like that. It was a good memory
With
during
the
a
bright
very
spot
dark
in
time.
dark times. So,
Yeah. I mean, so he, like, there's a lot of Hulk story being told here without a lot of Hulk movie. It is fantastic, but I feel bad for him. I genuinely do, like you said, because he's like, oh, I finally have someone, and then he's kind of like, oh crap, this is like a Moon Knight situation where I'm literally all alone except for the other guy that's in the back seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, until he can heal himself, and he's like, yeah, now I can.
Correct.
It's the two of us together. But yeah, I think what I was getting at was like that you still see his petty side when he does that, and it is the kind of like, I'm a man, just remember that. And it's like, yeah, you told me. I think I have been downplaying just the nice touches that Tatiana Maslany as an actor puts on her delivery for Jen stuff.
Yes.
It never, for me, it never comes off as feeling snarky, even though she does unlikable things. Well, one specifically unlikable thing, but like that we'll get to, but like it always feels like, yeah, I mean, obviously, why wouldn't she do that? Like I think she plays it really well, and I also think Mark Ruffalo's performance is great.
Yeah, I agree. It does make me believe, like, yeah, you two did grow up together. There's a familiarity there that would only be there since childhood. So, and that playfulness, like originally when I was like, yeah, I don't like the Shuri and T'Challa relationship. I think it's weird. And now I'm like, oh, I look back and I'm like, oh, this is actually great. She doesn't care that he's a king at all. Like that's a really good sister in the sense of like, that's friggin' hilarious. But like, and this, like the cousin aspect of it really works through too, because I'm like, yeah, you guys are just kind of being little kids again to a big degree. One thing I do have to say really, really quick, I loved how she Jennifer Walters was like, broke down TPT and was like, so basically spirituality or this, and he's like, no, dialectical behaviors is pure study science, and I'm like, it's basically this. And she was predicting every single thing. I'm like, yeah, because guess what, it could be peer reviewed, but it could still be culturally appropriated. Boom.
Agreed. Yeah, so basically we get through that part of the training, and then Jen is kind of like, yeah, I'm not actually, like, I don't care, I'm good at all this, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to use it as a lawyer. And she tries to reject being a superhero, and that's when Bruce is like, you need to realize that we can live between what we want and what is. Which is the whole, like, yeah, take everything into consideration. Don't try and block things out. And then so basically just try and bring everything together like he did with Smart. Like, I think that's why it's interesting to have Smart be this big thing throughout, because that is the end goal. I mean, it is that he even, because at one point she's like, no, just give me an inhibitor, and he's like, well, maybe I could make you like Smart Hulk, like we can just do the hybrid thing. She's like, no chance. But like, I believe that once you are the Hulk, and specifically like that is kind of just the end goal. And it helps that if you read the Dan Slott run, you realize that that is her preferred existence, is to be in Hulk form, because the big distinction, which we've already mentioned, is she's not hulking out, she's just upgrading, and then she still gets to keep her wit and her like everything. Whereas they said in the MCU, like basically like the Hulk starts at whatever he has, right? So like the reason he can speak so much in Thor Ragnarok is because he'd been the Hulk for 2 years and picked up actual vocabulary, versus and also generally just being like, I'm not Bruce Banner, so fuck off with that shit. But so I think all of that is that's why I'm saying for this show, it seems like that version, the Smart Hulk idea, is the end goal, and that's what they should be working towards.
Right. I mean, some like, it's always. I agree. I want that to be the premise of the entire show. because I think that's a very, very good and interesting premise, right?
So then yeah, basically Jen is like, I'm done with all this bullshit
Mhm.
because you're just projecting on me. She shows that she can
Yep.
phase in and out. She
Mhm.
talks about why she would, even if you're not talking about her blood,
Mhm.
uh she talks about why she would already be better at controlling the anger,
Yeah.
which I think would also work if she was any type of visible minority
Yes,
as well.
100%.
Like just those tools you're given when you're not cishet white male,
Yep.
where you have to actually navigate that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think all of that, I think
Yeah.
that she does make all those good points. And when she's trying to leave, and she even says, like, I'm not wrong to want to just keep trying to save the world the way I do it,
Yes,
which I agree with.
I
I
agree.
mean,
Yeah.
I agree for her. I think that, yeah, once you actually have the ability to intervene in a non-corrupt legal system, then maybe you should. But I understand that in general, she's not wrong.
Yes. Yes.
And that she's one of the good lawyers in this made-up world. But like, yeah,
Mhm.
so she's not wrong about that. Then, as I said, she does that unlikable thing where she decides to make it way more personal for Bruce, being like, I don't want to do it because you're like a lonely loser who lost everything and you
Yep.
don't even have a life. Which in the moment is fine, but then again, yeah, I agree with her doing that in the moment because he has been doing a lot of bullshit up until that point. So I think it's fine for her to vent that way. But then when she doubles down by being like, sorry for saying very true things, it's kind of like,
Mhm.
yeah, it's, I'm not saying it makes me like her less. I'm saying like that is an unlikable thing she does where she
100%.
doesn't actually apologize.
Yes,
Uh,
it's a bullshit apology. It was like, I'm sorry I made you feel this way,
yes.
or
Yeah,
no,
absolutely.
or I'm sorry you felt those feelings, but the things I said are still true. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the hell? Are you a narcissist or what's going on here? Like, what kind of apology was that? But you're right. I didn't like that, but I mean, I could look over that very, very quickly in the sense where I'm like,
Well, I
how many
think it makes
microaggressions
her,
does
it
she
just
get every
makes her
single day?
human, right? Like that's a
Oh,
shitty
100%.
thing she did. So it's not, yeah, as you said, like it doesn't mean that like you're like, oh, she did one wrong thing, fuck her. It's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, like the tensions were high. And also maybe that is just a thing of being a lawyer, right? Like not actually, just her profession would be like not taking accountability that way. You need to be
It's
able
true.
to kind of make truth, like it's the Jeff Winger thing, right? Like
Yeah.
it's truth is what you want it to be.
Truth is relative.
Yeah,
Truth is relative, which is bullshit.
it is. But yeah, but I think so. Then
It is.
it's
You're
something for her to
100%
work
right.
on.
It's right. Yeah.
It's something for her to work on, obviously.
But I think one of the biggest things, though, and I heard someone else say this, I think it was on New Rock Stars, of like, someone was saying that the character of Jennifer Walters is inherently in the comics a character that makes many, many, many mistakes, like
Mhm.
over and over and over again, right? You even mentioned it, like, oh, I destroyed a car because I was late or something like that, right? It's just like, didn't like that level of selfishness, not even thinking it's like, oh, it's my shit in my narrative. In front of everyone, I was just late. And it's like, well, you destroyed this guy's car or this person's car or whatever it might be. It's uh I'm kind of losing it, but like it's just this is just a fascinating journey to me. I'm loving this so far. This is so really good.
So yeah, the line that I butchered at the beginning is basically when she says all that, Bruce is like, but you're a Hulk, so like or whatever, and denying half of yourself is no way to live. And
Mhm.
I think that was important for me to get right because that's what I think the
Mhm.
show is, not just this episode, is
Yeah.
denying half of yourself is no way to live. And they get into an actual physical fight this time. Yes,
Mhm.
they bring up the thunderclap thing. I know other people have said it, but it's something I thought of independently of New Rock Stars and places like that, is
Sure.
that she recreates the sound waves from Incredible Hulk that were able to subdue him,
Mhm.
which I found interesting. And is an instance, unlike some of the other stuff where people talk about the end game fight, where I'm like, that was on TV, so that would be something people just know. Like you can do that to the Hulk.
Mhm.
Um, so again, I just thought like that was interesting writing, that it was like, well, that is something she would actually know and actually be able to use in that moment.
Mhm.
To not be like, I'm trying to like knock you out, but just trying to like show you like who's in charge right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
controlling this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then is that when they? I mean, maybe this is the wrong order, but they basically, it is the wrong order. But basically, they also have that night where he shows her like, we can drink as much as we want and we don't throw up or whatever.
Yeah. Here's the pro of being a Hulk.
This is one of the pros, and again, it's like you see TS and BB carved into the thing,
Mhm.
because, and that's important because I genuinely felt bad when they smashed it during the fight. I was like,
Oh,
fuck,
I felt
like,
so bad.
and
That
I
was
remember
rough.
thinking like, why do I care so much about this? Like, but I was like, I think the show did a great job of just making you like lean into the characters. That's
Yeah.
what I like about these shows when they're done right. Not, and this show, I assuming is gonna have a lot of cameos. Not
Mhm.
the like, the cameos are nice to have. It's when I care about the actual characters that they're telling the story about.
Yes.
And like a moment like that is proof of that, where I was like, fuck, they like ruined the thing that, yes, he built on his own. He says Tony kind of just stood there and complained about it too, but it still represents working with Tony to him, and not
Yes.
trying to fight or like not trying to save the world, just a
Mhm.
project they had together.
Because I feel, yeah, absolutely right. It was a project of enjoyment. It was bonding, basically. But more importantly, on top of that, I think the reason why I cared so much about that is because it breaks after she delivers all those kind of like harsh truths to him, in the sense
Yeah,
where
so
it's like,
he has
yeah,
one less thing now.
he has it, yeah, it's like, okay, great, the guy that was only trying to help you, and granted wasn't doing a great job of it because he only approached it, he's the only one that knows how to do, he's the only one that understands this. Of
Yeah,
course he
that's where
thinks,
they leave it.
yeah,
That's where they leave
of
it.
course,
It's like,
right?
you know what, you can go, like,
Yeah.
obviously you've got your own idea, but just remember, I do know what you're going through, so the door is
Exactly.
always open.
Yeah. So I mean, it's so rough because after that delivery, you're right. Yeah, he's been on the run for that long. This was the only thing that he really, really, really said that this was a bright spot in the dark era, right?
Yeah, I
And
don't
it gets
remember that
destroyed.
actual line, but yeah,
Well,
that's the concept. That's the
yeah,
idea.
that's no,
Yeah.
but he says that there's some sort of line where he's reminiscing about it. It's earlier on, but
Yeah,
he
what
says
I was
something
saying
like
is
it's
I
a
didn't
dark
want to
spot in
get
the
caught
thing.
up on, because like that's the essence of what they were saying, but I don't think that's
Yes.
the actual line.
Fair enough. I'm definitely paraphrasing there, but like, the idea of like, she delivers that, tears him down, they have a fight, and then the thing breaks too. It was rough. I was like, damn it, man,
Mhm.
he's not going to get a win anytime soon. This is rough for him. This sucks. But yeah.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
The fight. So yeah, they part ways, as I said, kind of like, you're obviously, and that's the second time she breaks, or the big time where she breaks the fourth wall that I remember, and she kind of like
Mhm.
doesn't want him to notice, is when they're rebuilding
Mhm.
the bar, and he says, I respect if you want to go home, and she's like,
Mhm.
he doesn't mean that. Like, she tries to pretend like she didn't just break the fourth wall when he looks back.
Mhm.
So I think that's an interesting, it's not really, I don't think it means anything other than it's interesting that, unlike Deadpool, who
Mhm.
just does it,
Right.
she's kind of like, I do this, but I like, it's not like I'm trying for everyone to see this. This is
Yeah.
just for you guys, the audience.
I think the confusing thing to me about it is that usually if we're looking at MCU and not Deadpool, until Deadpool 3 shows along, the MCU has always used the fourth wall breaking to either do a misdirect or talk to a villain. In this situation, there's periods of time where they're like, oh, it's a misdirect, like that opening scene where she's doing that, delivering that thing, right? And then there's times where it's like this scene where they're rebuilding, and then she's, oh, he doesn't mean that. And then I'm like, that's a genuine fourth wall break without any other intentional purpose other than doing a fourth wall break in a comedic point and to lighten that load. But it's a very interesting thing because I'm like, is there something? Are they trying to allude to the fact that they are? It's just confusing to me, but
What's
I do
confusing
like
about
it because I'm like, because everything in the MCU up until now has been like, oh, he's doing it for like to a villain, or
That's not a
and
fourth
they're
wall
there.
break. So
Fair
what
enough.
I guess
Yeah.
what I'm saying is it shouldn't be confusing because they're just like
Yeah,
now there's
that's not
fourth wall breaks.
genuinely. That's fair. That's not a genuine fourth wall break.
Yeah.
So it's just like the constant. I feel like I don't know if that's going to be a big part of the show. I hope not. Like Mr. X, is this a fourth wall break? But
No, I think
I
the
hope
show's
not.
given you. This is what I'm saying. The show
Mhm.
has given you a very easy way of it. Like if she's fourth wall
Gotcha.
breaking, there's going to be some aspect of like, hey, this is just between you and me. I think it's giving you a very good visual language. I don't think there's going to be any time where you're like wondering if it's a left to wonder if that was a fourth wall break.
Gotcha. Well, no. I didn't think the split second that I have to figure it out is what I'm talking about. It's a split second. I'm exaggerating it for sure, but I for sure definitively will know, right? Because the camera will pull out, we'll see a shoulder, we're like, oh, okay. Or it'll be like this. The confusing thing about it was like when Hulk was like, they try to pass it off as like she wasn't breaking the fourth wall. I got to rewatch it again, but it was just an interesting thing to see.
They didn't try and pass it off like it wasn't a fourth.
Fair enough.
It's a very clear. What she's trying to do is pass it off like she didn't
That's
say
what I
something
meant.
to us, but she
Yes.
did break the fourth wall, and it wasn't tried to be like.
Oh,
the show
that's
isn't
what I
trying to
meant.
cover
Like
it up.
she's trying to pass it off to Bruce within the show, not to pass it off to us as the audience. She's definitely communicating us, but I'm like the way she's trying to like the other characters. Like, what did you just do? Like it's kind of a funny thing, right? I want to see more of that because it's an interesting thing that they haven't done in the MCU so far.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. So then she gets back
Mhm.
and she's like, all right, so there you go. That's how come I am who I am. Let's get back into the lawyer show, which I'm assuming will be an ongoing bit of there's always going to be something that stops us from getting to the actual lawyer show. I'm hoping that's the bit that will keep going. Because even when we get to the actual closing arguments, you don't get to see them because Titania, I think that's how you pronounce it, the Jamila Jamil character, Titania, bursts through the courtroom and stops her closing arguments, and she has to fight her. And then they play the Amazing Eve song and go to credits. But yeah, I think well, and then there's the post-credit scene where you see further into that night. And I even like that she played drunk poorly, but Bruce didn't really catch on right away that she was only playing as drunk. And then he lets her know, no, Steve had sex in the 40s. He's not a virgin. He didn't die a virgin. So that was nice. And to end on, was it Steve Rogers or Captain America fucks?
I don't know, but either way, it's hilarious. The idea of like she had this intricate theory about how he was a virgin his whole life. And I'm like, I've never even thought about that or thought it was relevant at all. But it's
Not
probably
relevant, it's just a fun thing.
Yeah, it's just a funny thing. I'm like, I genuinely hope this show does more of those kind of things. Because I like that.
I feel like it's also
lot.
payoff to Winter Soldier, where like Natasha was also kind of like, what's the deal here? Like, you kind of kiss like a virgin. Like, that's not what she said, which is kind of like, you kind of kiss like that was like your second kiss ever. So.
Oh, I love that. Steve Rogers is a virgin. Oh,
but yeah,
I wonder if there was a podcast episode about that from Miss Marvel. Kamala Khan or Ant-Man or whatever it was. But it's really funny to think that other people are thinking that and really developed an intricate argument for why it would be true. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Great post-credit scene.
So that's the first episode. I like the show. I think successfully I feel like I understand what the show is about, and they got a lot of character stuff done for me in the right amount of time. I understand that people might have wanted a little bit more time with it, but it worked for me.
Well,
is all I can say.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all gung-ho for this series. This is great. It's funny to me. Oh god, the action looks good. The Jennifer Walters CGI looks way better. Like they cleaned it up. Like that first trailer they announced, I'm like, yeah, okay, I can understand why people were complaining that it didn't look too great, but it looks fantastic, especially the transformations.
Yeah,
It's cool.
I think she looks great.
Yeah.
But as I said earlier, like on another episode, I get that it can take people out. So I'm not trying to say it's not a valid complaint, but it's just something that wouldn't take me out if I was already enjoying the story. I don't mind that kind of stuff. And then yeah, the other part of it being Disney needs to do a better job of giving their team time to complete stuff, especially with this episode. As I said, they took something that was supposed to be in the 8th episode and put it into the 1st episode. So I'm assuming there was a whole bunch of crunch.
What was the 8th episode into the, what was that they put in?
Her as I said, her actual origin story.
I see what you mean. I see. Yeah. 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 Yep.
So I guess what I'm saying is I'm gonna not really do like other people and be like, oh, let me break down the VFX. And I'm like, that might just be out of people's hands at this point, especially the way.
I mean, we went
Disney's
through a
moving.
pandemic. I mean, there's a giant virtual effects backlog for across all studios. We got to be a little bit more understanding about that.
That's kind of been my thing. Like when people are like, oh, this, the pandemic ruined this, or like, oh, they're filming on the volume. Like, yeah, that's how it gets made now. Good for you. You pointed it out. Like, I think
this is how people adapt, baby.
This is what it is, right? Like,
yeah.
If you take the whole story, so yes, the visuals don't look great in the trailer. Why is that? Well, one, the trailer got leaked, so Disney felt forced to like put it out, and then you get what you get. But also, it means that there's a bunch of people who were sacrificing their life to get things done for a certain date that now have to get it done sooner. And I'm sure it doesn't feel great to have people like, this looks like shit. Not because they're like, oh no, I could have done better. Trust me, it's more just like, well, fuck you. Like, I didn't have the time.
Yeah. It's really, really a shame when those like articles of how Marvel Studios is putting all this pressure and multiple edits of like just so they can have an option of what the final look looks like. You know what I mean? For secrecy reasons, I'm sure NDAs and all that kind of stuff too. Because I mean, if they have something leaked, they're like, well, okay, well, we have 25 versions of this, so leak nothing. I don't
really think that's the case, because I don't think anything has fully changed. Because like, I think it is just people like Disney isn't above silly decisions like Warner Brothers of just like, nah, we don't really want to expend on this, so just change it to that instead of I think that's the more realistic, and oftentimes what actually happens is, hey, we're putting it out now because we feel like it'll make more money if we do it now, or do whatever we need it to do better, or it's happening this time and they're not letting people actually complete their jobs with the right amount of time.
Right. Yeah, that's coming, but I mean, it looks fantastic. I love it a lot. It's we got to be a little bit more forgiving. It's what the pandemic's done. Sure, whatever. I mean, everyone's willing to tolerate less shit now. So,
as I said, I understand that you could just be like, oh, it looks bad, I'm out. But I think anything beyond that seems mean-spirited to be like actually trying to pick it apart, or like, it's like, well, we already know why. No amount of 10 to 15 minute videos breaking down like, the courtroom scene seems weird because she's throwing from here and then she's throwing, and I like,
yikes, I haven't even seen that. But I'm choosing not to engage in that. I'm choosing not to engage in that. That would be why.
I think all of that kind of stuff. Sure, I guess you need more content.
When people,
for your YouTube channel, but it's just, I think we can agree that it can take you out of something if the effects are bad. I think we also understand that there have been, as you said, many articles talking about why things might look bad, and then you could just leave it at that.
I also feel like Disney Marvel is not beyond upgrading or touching up their stuff as time goes on. I'm sure there are people that's out there that said, "Oh yeah, the post credit scene in WandaVision's changed like a few months after, like inexplicably, and all this kind of stuff." And they were theorizing about that. But I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's going to happen a little bit more often. They're just going to go back there and update certain things, or maybe even gaslight us to be like, "Yeah, see, Kang was here all along," and there's like a poster of Kang or something like that edited in, and then people are like, "Wait, what's?" Come on, man. You can't do that. You can only do that in the new part of it, not in the old part. You can't reverse edit. George
Agreed.
Lucas, whatever.
All right.
Yeah.
I think that's it for episode 1.
That's it for
I
episode
think we
1.
both liked it. That's good. It's a good start.
Yeah.
And I am going to look forward to more episodes. Yeah, thank you very much for listening, everybody. This has been another episode on the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Real. So please head on over there. That's thatshelf.com. If you want to hear older episodes of our show, please go to tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Our Twitter is @tdfspoiled. So please hit us up there. Let us know what you thought of the show, just what you think in general, and the ways you can listen to us. Easy. We're on all sorts of podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Radio Public, all everywhere. So please rate, review, subscribe, follow, share with your friends, do all of those great things.
Mm-hmm.
And we will be back with another episode spoiling She-Hulk. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.